Okay, good morning. So I think in the last class we had discussed about what is political theory, what is political, uh, what was the other thing? Political thought, and what is political philosophy. And we also had discussed about how theories can be divided into two. That is, one is empirical theories, the other is normative. So it is also called as what political philosophy, and generally next when you read you will be political science. Okay, so political science where they use largely your scientific methods. So that is why if you see the subject also, it is called as political science. Okay, but again when we say political science, we are not referring to your natural science subjects like biology, chemistry, etc. Here what do you mean by political science? Using scientific method to understand politics. That you will understand when you go through certain scientific theories which will come. So till Machiavelli, or you can say till the time of 1950s or 1940s, the political theory will be dominated by philosophy. Okay, after 1940s they will start bringing more scientific methods into the subject. The reason being that when the beginning of the Second World War, there will be a decline in what you can say political philosophy. Means now many countries they feel that the political scientists or political philosophers, they have not much to offer. Okay, so like Plato spoke about conditions in Greeks, so they started questioning what is the use of that today. Okay, and there was also rise of fascism in Germany. Okay, they could not explain. Means when you want to understand that why fascism grew in Europe or in Germany, you also have to be, you cannot just study politics in terms of philosophical terms, right? You also have to go into a bit of economic nature of the society, or the psychological studies which has to be done on mass behavior. Okay, it's not about individual behavior. How do certain humans behave when they are in a group? So now what they did is that they started to make the subject interdisciplinary. Means they started bringing what you can say methodology what they used in sociology, in psychology, and that is when you can say the subject started to become what political sociology, political economy, political psychology. So they started also bringing scientific methods into subject. But again what will happen is that the subject will see a second decline. Okay, now what will happen, the thinkers will start saying that we have to make it similar to natural science. Let us remove the philosophy part. There is no use of values, there is no need of philosophy. But the problem what will happen is that now many will start criticizing, say that can you make this subject completely scientific? Is it possible to do like biology, chemistry, etc.? Because the ultimate purpose of the political theory, okay, that is any study what has to be done, it has to be both two aspects. One is what it has to be descriptive. Let us think there is something wrong happening in the society. You have to be able to identify what, like a doctor, if something is wrong in your body, he'll be able to identify what is the wrong. But the doctor will not stop himself there. He will not identify something which is wrong and he'll tell this is what is happening. He'll also prescribe, right? What is the medicine, what is the solution? So a job of a political scientist, that is what they said, he also has to identify what is wrong within the society, why it is going wrong, you have to explain, and you also have to prescribe certain values. Okay, what kind of ideal society we have to build. So in during this period when they try to make it completely scientific, they removed the values part. They only limited themselves to what, okay, developing methodologies which can explain what is happening, and that is when there was criticism, and that is when there was a phase where they re-brought back the values. So as of today's time, today it is largely accepted that both scientific methods and philosophy, both are key aspects of the subject. So when you say political theory, it comprises of both political philosophy as well as political science. Got the point? So means next you will read, when we read behavioralism and post-behavioralism, you have a scholar called as Andrew Hacker who said that every theorist is partly a philosopher and is partly a scientist. You cannot remove the two aspects from it. If you try to remove any one, obviously subject will start to decline. Okay, so that is why though the subject is called political science, it does not mean it is natural science. Okay, it is not science we are speaking in terms of chemistry, biology, etc. It is nothing but scientific method of study of the political phenomenon. So we had also discussed about when we are discussing about political thought, Western political thought, the beginning of the Western political thought is with the Greek. Okay, so largely three scholars I told, Socrates, Plato and Aristotle, what you have to know about their ideas. So before you go into individual ideas, you have to generally understand what are the common features, okay, when you read fundamental rights, right? Forget about article 12, article 13, article 14, from 12 to 35 there are articles. But when we say features of fundamental rights, we are not speaking about any one particular article. We are speaking about what? A generalized common characteristics, okay, like what are certain features of fundamental rights? Okay, one, it is justiciable in nature. Then I am telling, see, forget about you, sir, I don't know article 14, article 15, article 16, that is secondary. Telling holistically, when you say what are the features, what will you, or let us say, I think for some students still polity has not happened, let us say modern history has happened. Now when they tell, comment on the features of moderates, we are not speaking about individual moderates, we are not speaking about each person, we are speaking about collectively what their ideas represented. Similarly, when we say about the features of ancient Greek political thought, it's not individually we are speaking about, in the sense also there can be certain differences. It's like if you have 100 crores, not crores, I am telling crow. One crow is white. Okay, that does not make that the crows are white. So when we see features, they are general, but there can be certain contradiction of each individual scholar in what you say. But generally, as a whole, when we read what is a political thought, it is ideas brought by certain scholars belonging to a time period. So basically, during this time period, what was their general thinking? So that we have to note down. So take down the subheading as the features of the ancient Greek political thought. The features of ancient Greek political thought. See, whenever in political science, I am not telling about now, like in next when you prepare or telling you are going from an exam point of view, there is a huge difference between studying the subject and huge difference between how do you perform in the subject. So the point is that though everybody will read the same set of notes, everybody won't end up getting the same marks. Okay, largely it is because about how do you prepare. The content might be same, but how do you prepare? And how do you prepare that? How do you prepare that depends upon, to a certain extent, that your while reading itself, if you have brought about, how do I answer questions, that thinking is there while preparation itself, then you will know what to read. You are getting a point. If you, that's what I told, take a look at certain toppers blogs in that regard. Like one fellow is Utkarsh Dwivedi. Okay, I think he's written in detail about his preparation strategy, etc. One good thing about his blog is that he's uploaded his notes. Okay, that is nothing but a compiled mini notes, means what he has referred to different sources. Now if you find the pattern what he has done in his notes arrangement, all his notes is in one common pattern. Any topic you take in his notes, it will have an introduction, a pre-prepared introduction. The reason is that in exam, obviously when they ask a question, you have to introduce a concept, you have to write an introduction, that he has already done beforehand while preparation itself. So what will happen in examination, he will save a lot of time because he does not need to think, right? Not many people when they write introduction, they don't know what to write. Like in general you have read, okay, tell write an answer, they give a question. Obviously you will struggle a lot to think what shall I write as my introduction. See, that's why I am telling you, there is a huge difference between cracking the exam and preparing. There are two completely different things. Many people what they do here is they just prepare, they don't crack. Why they don't crack? That's why I told the first problem lies is that they don't know the exam. Forget about knowing political science secondary. There are people who are from Delhi University, JN, still they are also not able to crack in spite of doing MA, etc. The reason is there are two different things. What you do in MA, like in when I did my masters in public policy in National Law School, there it is different. You write like UPSC pattern, they won't give you marks. You go there and you write like UPSC, you won't get marks. Simple. Their demand is different. Here the demand is different. So you have to be adaptive. You have to know where to write how. And that's why I told, like coming from diverse backgrounds, like some come from medical background, some come from engineering background, some come from commerce background. Every background they have a different demand there. Here it is a different set of demand, and who will succeed very quickly is that who are able to understand what is the demand and understanding a demand is important because it reduces your time for preparation also. Means you won't end up reading everything. And that's why I told certain times why I think many of your mentors also keeps telling, take look at toppers notes. At least don't write it now only because it's now you are very new, you cannot prepare the notes, but at least you will get an idea. So this Utkarsh Dwivedi notes, that is what you can understand. Everything is done, conclusion ready. Okay, it is ready. This should be not done now. After your 1 or 2 readings, what you do, when you finally decide you want to make short notes, your short notes should have only what? Keywords, introduction, conclusion. So if there is tomorrow, and especially in optional it will work even better. The reason is that in optional questions are static compared to your GS. Even in political science, if you take IR, okay, now many people think IR is too dynamic. That is actually flawed if you have not analyzed the paper. NPT only they have asked in last 10 years, they have asked 7 times. Same question they have asked in different ways. Why India has not signed NPT? What will happen if India signs NPT? In optional, that is one advantage. They don't go too dynamic like your GS. GS is every day current affairs is happening, etc. Even in optional, even like a subject like political science, if you take NPT, UN, why India is applying permanent membership UN, these are all common questions which are asked in 7 to 8 times. So if you have a ready-made introduction, if you had a ready-made conclusion, obviously your time is saved and you don't need to struggle a lot. And second one is that when you maximize your resources, let us say you have read 10 different books, it's good, but are you able to write it on the paper? 100% no. So you will end up being what? You will end up being a genius in the subject, but not in the exam paper. A person who has done minimal studies, he will actually perform better. The reason is that he has only read little, he knows only little to write, and he has clarity about what to write. About you have read 100 things, you don't remember exactly what is there in what source, unless you are able to compile it into what? Your own short notes. Got it? So in political science, whenever we start an introduction, we usually start with a commentator. Whom do we call a commentator? One who has studied the subject or the focus of study, and he's brought his analysis. We say it's a viewpoint. As I told, you have to use viewpoints in your answers, but your answer should not be only about viewpoint. That is one more mistake what many students will do. Like there will be questions like critically examine the role of caste in contemporary electoral politics. What many people will do, I told now, they will just write viewpoints. Rajni Kotari said this, Yogendra Yadav said this. They won't only give you marks for that. You have to back those views with your analysis. Okay. Now when you take Greek political thought, you take down the first commentator. Means there is a person called as Barker. Okay. Take down Barker. Barker says the political thought begins. Barker says political thought begins with the Greeks. Political thought begins with Greeks. And its origin is connected. To the rationalism. Its origin is connected to the rationalism of the Greek mind. Political thought begins with the Greeks and its origin is connected to the rationalism of the Greek mind. What did you understand by that? See, many times what can also happen is that now this I will use as my introduction in any kind of question which has European political thought or Greek political. This is fixed. I will write Barker and his view. But sometimes what they can also do is that they can ask this quote given by Barker itself as a question. Okay, they can write political thought begins with the Greeks and it is connected to the rationalism of Greek mind. Barker comment for 10 marks. Now this is where the problem will arise, because you have by-hearted the quote, you have not understand what the quote is meaning, then you have to write for 150 words. Obviously you don't have content to write. So always when you read any quote, you need to understand what does he mean by that. Okay, what is your understanding that he says political thought begins with the Greeks and it is connected to the rationalism of Greek mind. So two keywords is that when we look at important political ideas, they have taken birth in Greece. That you will understand when you read the Greek thought, be it Socrates, be it Plato, be it Aristotle, they have spoken about important political ideas. The second part of the question is rationalism. Why they were able to come out with these ideas? Because they gave lot of importance to reason, logic, okay, a thinking mind, and that is what was able to see that Greek was one of the civilization which produced important ideas on democracy, on equality, etc. How do we know that they spoke about rationalism? When you read about Socrates, when you read about Plato, when you read about Aristotle, they give lot of importance to knowledge. They say knowledge should be an important aspect of human civilization, knowledge should shape human thinking. So that is the meaning of the quote, and that is why Barker says that political thought begins with the Greeks, and it is what connected to the rationalism of the Greek mind. Means the Greeks were thinking oriented. They put question for everything. For example, any idea they put on questioning. They didn't blindly accept it. Got it. Second, you take down next point. Professor Moyer, Professor Moyer says the European thought and approach, the European thought and approach, European thought and approach of understanding life, European thought and approach of understanding life, has been permanently molded, by Greek ideas, The European thought and approach of understanding life has been permanently molded by the Greek ideas. So you can see Professor Moyer is speaking about the importance of the influence of the Greeks on European. So basically rest of Europe, their important political ideas, their understanding of life was shaped largely by whom? The Greek ideas. And who are the Greeks who gave these ideas? Socrates, Plato and Aristotle. And later also when you read Plato, you will read that even the most harshest critic of Plato, Karl Popper is there. Even he praises Plato, saying that whatever you read in European political thought is either Platonic or anti-Platonic, but there is nothing called as non-Platonic. Either you agree with him, either you disagree with him, but there is nothing you can say he has not written about. Okay. So that is why we say that Greek political idea is very important to study, largely because it has molded, it has shaped how Europeans think. Okay. Now we have to go into, okay, what were their general ideas they presented, not specific to Plato except, but generally what were the Greeks thinking. So take note, the general characteristics of the Greek, political thought. In that first point, it is an exclusive political treatise. It is exclusively a political treatise. What do you mean by treatise? Basically, it's a document in that regard. So, why we are using the word exclusively a political treatise? Let us think, for example, the Hindu political thought, Indian political thought. There is a lot of debate among political scholars whether the Indian political thought largely, is it exclusively a political thought? Why? Because when you read the Indian political thought like Manu, Kautilya or even Gandhi to a certain extent, you find it very difficult to differentiate between religion and politics, philosophy and politics. They are very closely interlinked, very intertwined, you cannot separate them. So some say this is not political ideas, these are all spiritual ideas. because for them, if you go back to the word politics, politics mainly concerned with power, study of city states at that point of time. But here they say that there is no direct, in Indian political thought, there is no direct study on city states, there is a lot of spirituality also. But when you look at Greek political ideas, you find that to a certain degree there is clear separation of politics from religion, etc. And that is why they call it as exclusively a political treatise. There is something also called as Buddhist political thought in India. Some consider Buddha to be just a philosopher. He spoke about, life, etc. But some also say, no, if you actually interpret what Buddha said, there are many things he's also spoken about the state. But the problem here is that, can you separate the two? No, you cannot. In Indian political, that is impossible. You cannot separate, even today if you see the type of secularism what we follow. Okay, what kind of secularism we follow? What is the kind of secularism we follow? Act state means positive secularism, unlike the West where they follow clear separation of the state and church. One of the reasons why we adopted this form of secularism, that's why I told, if you look at Indian history in that regard, nowhere in Indian history there is a clear separation of religion and politics. Take Vedic period. Vedic period, there was a relation between the Purohit and the king, Rajan. Mutually beneficial relation. What is a mutual beneficial relation? The king wanted legitimacy. What does it mean? His authority has to be recognized. And who gave that recognition? The Purohit, the Brahmin. So if you look at Kautilya, if you look at Manu, their writings in that regard, they usually project the king to be a symbol of God. It's generally, if you take even Ashoka, King Ashoka name, it is not reflected everywhere as King Ashoka. There is only 3 places, I think 4 places in Karnataka only, Maski, etc., where Ashoka, the name Ashoka they have used. But in all other places, what is the name written on the edicts? Devanam Priya Piyadasi. What is the meaning of that? One who is dearer to God. Or if you take the Cholas, Cholas installed the images of the kings and the queens inside the temple. Or if you take many kings, their name will start with God. The reason being, one way that these rulers claimed legitimacy was they invoked God. And who is considered to be the mediator between the God and man? It is the priestly class. So that is why they needed the support of the priestly class. And in return, what did the priestly class get? They got land grants. Brahmadeya, the land grants given to Brahmins in that regard. So that is why you can see there is a mutual cooperation. Unlike in the West, especially after this medieval period, conflict started between the church and the state. This didn't happen here. And that is why you see even today in India, when you look at religion and politics, why religion plays a key role in Indian politics, and that is what we generally say, Indian state might have been secularized. Indian society has not been secularized. Secularism, secularization are different. Secularism is a policy what you follow where you say that the state will not discriminate against any religion. Secularization refers to the process where the role of religion will start reducing. So when you look at our constitutional creators like Ambedkar, etc., they gave us a secular state in the books, in the constitution. But when you look at the society, in society it is different. Religion still plays a key role. Okay, for example, let us take when we launch ISRO satellite, we do certain puja. Now if you go by theoretical definition of secularism, that cannot be done. Okay, I am telling theoretically. Means you cannot bring religion into the public sphere at large, but that does not happen in India. One of the reasons why that does not happen and that cannot happen is that our society has not been completely secularized. The role of religion even still plays a key role. That was not the case in West. And especially if you look at the Greek political thought, in Greek political thought you don't find too much emphasis on religion. It is, that's why we say it is an exclusively political treatise, a document written on politics where they have kept out religion. So take note the explanation for it. The Greek political thought comprises of the Greek political thought comprises of number of independent treatises. the Greek political thought, it comprises of number of independent treatises which are exclusively concerned with political problems unlike the Indian political thought, where we see unlike the Indian political thought where we see intermixing of political ideas with mythology and religious literature, intermixing of political ideas with mythology and religious literature. So if you see that when you read Ramayana, Mahabharata, etc., some will see only them as what some story, but many Indian scholars, because there was a criticism against Indian political thought, saying that Indians do not have any political ideas. There is a guy called as George Stanham. They told Indian political thought is strategic, it does not have any strategic thinking only. And why he says that? He says that if you look at Indian foreign policy initially period, they were not ground with real politics, they are only ground with idealism, romanticism. And why he says that? He told because if you look at Indian emergence of the Indian political ideas, he says there is no political ideas, but some disagree. Now they say if you look at Ramayana, means that's what I am telling you, have to interpret it, you cannot directly know it. If you take Hanuman, when Ram sent Hanuman to Lanka, it was diplomacy. Okay, and we take in Mahabharata, there is war ethics. There are certain rules and regulations which they followed, that you cannot fight after the sunset. Okay, there are certain war ethics which were followed. But that's why I told you have to interpret, it is mixed with religious literature. Unlike in the West, it is not intermixed, it is plain and open. Understood? That is one major, that is why we say one of the important feature of the Greek political thought is exclusively it is a political treatise. Now in exam, you don't need to write so much explanation, this explanation is given for you to understand. In exam when you write, you can directly write it is an exclusive political treatise, you get a point. So even when it happens when you read Lakshmikant polity, okay, so he will give so much of explanation on, it does not mean you have to buy out the whole thing you have to read to understand. What you need to remember is the key sentence or the key line. Okay. Second point you take down of Greek political thought, its major concentration is on the nature of the state, sorry, its main concentration is on nature of the state. So what do we mean by that? When you go into these ideas given by Plato, Socrates or Aristotle, one common thing what you will find in all three of them is that they are largely focusing on the idea of state. Maybe it is not nation state, city state, but the idea of state. Okay, they go into the ideas of, okay, how did the state come into being? Why do we need state? And they also go into what are the different types of state. So now what you say, monarchy, democracy, aristocracy, this is not something new. Why we call Aristotle the father of political science? Because ages back only he had spoken about all this. The current thing is that aristocracy, democracy, this is not something new. Aristotle had classified the states back then itself. So you can say the central focus of the Greeks was what? Studying about the state. And largely they believed state is natural. What do you mean by natural? Now the question arises, today we are living in a state, right? We have the Indian state. Okay, how did this state come into being? Forget about Indian state. First of all, how did state come into being? That you will read when you read theories of state. Some theories like this Aristotle, Plato, they say it is natural. How it is natural? They are told once you are born as a human being, they believe that man is not an isolated creature. He cannot live in isolation. He always have to live in a group. So basically they say that naturally what happens when you start living in a group, they say that first you will start with family. Okay, 3-4 members will be staying family. Then what happens, it becomes groups of families, that becomes a society. Obviously when you are living in groups, conflicts are bound to emerge. So obviously you can say next level is the formation of a state. Now how this happens, they say this is not some artificially created, this is a natural process which happens, and that is why Aristotle gives that statement, one who lives outside the state should be either God, means he is perfect, he does not require state only, or he should be a beast. Beast means animals, like if you go to jungle, now tiger, deer, they don't live according to rules, na. Tiger will eat when it wants, it will hunt when it wants. There is no rule that tiger should not go hunt this many deers. There is no agreement between them. It's like jungle. You can behave however you want. So that is why they say that humans need state. If state is not there, humans won't survive. And that is why they believe that state is natural. But there is other theories, like if you take next when you read Locke, Hobbes, they don't agree with this idea. They say how is that possible that some also say state was created by God, that God naturally kept you when he created the world, state was created. They say these are all philosophical things, metaphysical things, there is no proof. So they give a different theory called as social contract. Okay, that is why we call them as social contract thinkers. They say that no, state was not natural, we humans have created state. So if you take our preamble which is there, preamble also I think they have asked one question, it is a reflection of a contract among the Indian people, because we have signed an agreement saying that we need Indian state. So they say God has not created state, or state is not natural, state is created by humans. The question is about why they have created, that we have to look into that ideas that each one of them will give. Understood? So for Greeks, the state was natural. State is good. They don't speak about ill things about state. They say state is very good. State will bring your development. State will ensure that you are well protected. So Greeks are highly positive about state. That's what I told. When you read Socrates, when Socrates was given poison, hemlock, the decision was given by the state of city-state of Athens. He could have escaped, but he didn't escape. Why? Because he strongly believed that state has to be respected, state has to be followed, even when the state gives a decision which is against your interest. Understood? And that is why we say their main concentration was what? The nature of the state. So under that you take down the Greek political thought. The Greek political thought considered man to be a political animal. Greek political thought considered man to be a political animal. What do you mean by political animal? What do you mean by political animal? Means? Okay. So basically one meaning is that, the other meaning is that individual cannot survive without the state. From birth only individual is endowed to be part of polity. Okay, we also say man is a social animal. What do you mean by that social animal? Man cannot live alone. Some of the logic is that, let us take even in when you want to do hunters and gatherers, that is a group activity. Or you want to run a family, again it is a group activity, it cannot be done alone. So when we say man is a social animal or a political animal, means man wants to live in a group activity. Within a group, what is politics? It is about the authority which creates a organized way of living. So that is what Greeks believed, that man is not just an animal, he is a political animal. Next we take down, they also discussed the origin We also discussed about the origin as well as the end of the state. They also discussed about the origin as well as the end of the state, and they distinguished various forms of states. They distinguished various forms of state. Forms means types. Forms of states such as monarchy, aristocracy, democracy, etc. Monarchy, aristocracy, democracy, etc. What is monarchy? Single person rule. What is aristocracy? Rule by few elites. What is democracy? Rule of the majority, that is the people. Okay, so that you will understand once we go into classification of the state. You can classify states based on the number of rulers. You can also classify states based on their quality. Okay, if you take Aristotle gives a fourth type of state called as polity. Polity is a type of state according to Aristotle. For Aristotle, monarchy, aristocracy, democracy are not perfect. That you will understand once we read Aristotle's classification of constitution. Why we are using the word classification of constitution? For Aristotle, he did not distinguish between constitution and state. At that point of time, constitution was state. Today it is different. Today we do not consider constitution is the state. Today it is separate. Na? The word constitution is separate, the word state is separate, the word government is separate. When we use today, we say Indian government. Indian government is a representative of Indian state, part of the Indian state. Or we say Indian government is the executive branch of the state. When we say judiciary, it is the judicial branch of the state. Or when we say constitution, constitution is a document which will mention what are the powers and functions of the state. And when we say constitutionalism, what do you mean by that? It means that basically our government is limited by the boundaries of the constitution. It cannot act however it wants. So today it is different, but back in times of Aristotle, there was no distinction between constitution and state. Constitution was state. So when you say classification of constitution, it is nothing but classification of state. So he classified it based on monarchy, aristocracy, democracy, tyranny, getting the point. So take note, various forms of state, that is monarchy, aristocracy and democracy. Third point, the Greeks were the first to stress on social nature of man. Greeks were the first to stress on the social nature of man. So when you are using the word man, then you can say then does not include women. It also includes women. Okay, when we say political man, it also includes women at large. So even see now, even today, if you look at now, things are changing. Before they used to call the post like chairman. Today it is changed to what? Chairperson. We made it gender neutral. Largely why it was called as chairman at that point of time. We are speaking about the emergence of the modern political institutions in 18th century, 19th century. That time largely it was dominated by men. So that is means they never seen a woman who is a head of the organization. So that is why it was used to call chairman. But now since things are changed, now many women occupy that position. That is why they are called as chairperson. And see, that is one thing. And second thing, if you look at society also, you can take like when you compare to European societies, the Asian or Latin American societies, largely these societies are still patriarchal. Looking at society, state might be different, state might tell 100 different things, like article 15, it says that no discrimination, article 14 might speaks about right to equality, that is on the papers. But when you apply that on the society, it is different. That's what I'm telling you, theory and paper is different. Why? whom you are applying into, you are not applying into vacuum, you are applying into a society. So you have to also know that what is the structure of that society. So even today, if you see largely, if you let's just think she becomes an IPS tomorrow in some posted in Uttar Pradesh. Now the constables there, you see in many serials also they will capture that idea. They will tell Madam Sarji. They don't just tell Madam, they will tell Madam Sarji. Means that the mindset it is attached that they can never envisage a woman being a down. So that is why they added Madam Sarji. That is what we can say. The society values, state might have been different, society different. So in what do we mean here is that the Greeks always believed that we live in a society, man is social by nature, man cannot exist. So when you live in a society, you also have to understand what are the personal relations within that society. And why we say man is social by nature, because they believed that you individually you cannot do anything, always you need a group. So that's why I told here we use political man, largely the reason being that at that point of time the role of women was very little, okay, but when we are using the word political man does not mean it is not including women, or when we say social nature of man, we are referring to social nature of humans including women, okay. So take down here, according to the Greeks, an individual cannot be isolated. According to the Greeks, an individual cannot be isolated and an independent unit cannot be isolated and an independent unit and they also considered social living has lot of benefits for an individual, to individual. Next, fourth point you can take down as city states and citizens. City states and citizens. So when I think before only we have discussed, at this point of time there was no nation. Largely the Greek political ideas revolve around what? Study of city states like Athens, Sparta, etc. They also spoke about the idea of citizenship. Now you should not think citizenship is something which emerged only when nations came. Aristotle has written largely about citizenship, but the ideas given by him is a bit different than what it is today. So today when you read Indian constitution and today when you read citizenship, currently I think for those polity has been done, you know that citizenship can be acquired through 5 ways. That is through what? The Citizenship Act 1955. The Indian constitution does not give details about who can acquire citizenship, etc. It says that the parliament has been given the power, the parliament through the law they can. Now here currently according to what we live, I am not telling only within India, majority of the nation states, what you take in today's time, they give citizenship based on birth. If you are born in that country, you will be a citizen. But in Greeks it was not like that. They didn't give citizenship only because you are born in Greece. They had put additional conditions like this Aristotle. We call this as active citizenship or functional citizenship. Means if you only perform certain functions, then you can enjoy the citizenship. If you are not performing functions, they won't give you citizenship. And function means what? Not any function. You have to do political functions, functions of the state. You have to be some use to the state. And Aristotle largely believed that only those people who have reason, logic, they can play the role of the state. Those who don't have reason, they are all slaves. Even if you are born there, you don't have reason, you are a slave. Slave cannot do any public functions. Slave only has to do domestic functions. So those who are masters, they have to work in their house, do their house cleaning work, etc., etc. Why? It will help the master to save lot of time so that he can give it to what? Functioning of the state. And that is why we call as functional concept of citizenship. And currently in current Indian constitution, children, women, world, etc., everybody are given citizen based on birth, etc. But according to the Greeks, especially Aristotle, he did not give citizenship to children. Why? He told they don't, children are too small to understand complex things, so that is why they are denied citizenship. They don't have maturity. Old people he denied, saying that they are too old to come and contribute to the state. Slaves he denied, he told slaves do not have thinking ability. Women he denied, because Aristotle, see that's what I told, there will be some Greek philosopher who will be different from others. Like you take Plato and Socrates, they were not anti-women, means their ideas were a bit pro-women. They allowed women to participate in politics, etc. Aristotle was not like that. Aristotle denied women citizenship because he told women have to do domestic duties, taking care of the children, that is their duty. Duty of the man is to what? Do public affairs. So he denied women, children, slaves, old people citizenship. That is why we call as functional concept of citizenship, not, but they spoke about the idea of citizenship. Okay, largely they spoke about, and that is why we say this Aristotle has written about everything. You take the Indian constitution, he has written about constitution, he has written about citizenship, etc. Got it? So that is one of the major feature of the Greek political thought. So take down, the Greek political ideas were centered around city states. Greek political ideas were centered around city states, and what is city state you have already taken down in the previous class. Okay, city states, and it was a complete social organization. It was a complete social organization in which it was a complete social organization in which citizens, it was a complete social organization in which citizens continuously participated, in bracket you can take down functional concept of citizenship, functional concept of citizenship. Concept of citizenship. And one more point you have to take down or note down is that the Greeks did not distinguish between society and state. Today it is different, na? Today time, I think in newspaper you will be reading about civil society is protesting against the laws brought by the state. Who is this civil society? In newspaper, whenever I think recently data protection bill was brought about, in newspaper when you write, there are many civil society groups which are opposing the bill. Okay, who are these civil society group? Okay, first of all, what is the difference between a society and a state? Yeah, but it is better to start. What is the difference between society and state? We say sociology is more about study of society. Political science is more about study of state. What is the relation between society and state, or what is society, what is state? See, you can say like this, society is more broader than the state. We can say state is part of society. It's one of the association within the society. It is not the only association. There are other associations, religious groups, they are one more kind of association, caste groups, they are one more kind of association. State is also one of the association. Largely during Greek time, I am telling at Greek time, they did not separate between society and state. For them, society was state, state was society. State was only one big society. But today, as we have evolved, things have changed. Today we see society is different, society is broader. And later, I think when we study approaches of political science, you will read about an approach called as political sociology. That is the interaction or the marriage between political science and sociology. That is a new theme political sociology. Why that the political sociology is there today? Today they understand that one, state and society are not same. State is part of society. But if you want to study about the state, you cannot study about the state in vacuum. Okay, if you take this is the bigger circle, state is the smaller circle. When you want to make a study of the smaller circle, it is not possible to study this smaller circle without studying inside what it is operating. So state is operating within society, caste, religion. Like let us take Atul Kohli is one of the prolific writers on caste and politics in India. Okay, one of the, there are others also, Rajni Kothari, Yogendra Yadav, etc. Atul Kohli largely also we can say is a political sociologist. I'm not telling he's just a sociologist, I'm not telling he's just a political scientist, he's a political sociologist. Means if you want to study about, let us take elections, elections is part of the state. In India I am telling, can you study the elections in India without analyzing the role of caste? It is impossible, not at all possible. In India it is, it means if you don't know the understanding of caste, you don't understand politics. Why? Because there is interaction between the two. And what is the kind of interaction? For example, let us take the recent Karnataka elections. 40% of the tickets across party lines, BJP, Congress, JDS, etc., were given to whom? The Lingayat community. Why did they give it to the Lingayat community? Because already they are the dominant caste. See, I am telling, dominant caste. Again, that you will understand when you read caste and politics. There is a difference between upper caste and dominant caste. Lingayats does not refer to upper caste. Or second one, there was a question which was asked. Let us take to the Indian National Congress. Now, Indian National Congress is considered to be a bit of a center to the left party. So, saying that we have very close concern for Dalits, etc. One question was raised: if you have so much close concern for Dalits, why then Karnataka has not had a Dalit CM? Karge was there, 9-time MP. Why? The reason being, that's what saying that in politics, caste plays a key role. Again in mind, caste plays a key role. And that is when we say you want to understand Indian politics, you cannot just study this part in separation. You have to study this part in separation to the outset. And that is what we call as political socialism. This is today. But back in Greeks' time, they didn't have that understanding. You are getting a point, because that time the society was very small. If you take Greek was more of a homogeneous society. So state was society, society was state. There was no difference between the two. But as we have evolved, now it is different. We don't consider state and society to be the same. State is part of society. Got it? So take note here. During Greek period, the Greek thinkers did not distinguish. During the Greek period, the Greek thinkers did not distinguish between the state and society, between the state and society. Did not distinguish between state and society. Next, fifth point. The other important features of Greek political thought is that they gave importance to education. All three of them, they stress that education is one of the important characteristics of politics. So take note. Importance given to education. Importance given to education. Under that you take down, the Greeks emphasized that the rulers have to be educated, and they stressed on the education system, they stressed on education system, and they also spoke about state controlled education. They also spoke about state controlled education. So when you read Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, you find lot of emphasis, they speak about education, etc. Now, what is so political about education? We are surveying on political thought. How is education related to it? See, it's not only rulers, education is a very important tool to control people's mind. State controlled education is two things, two meanings. State controlled is state has to give education. State controlled education also means the state will decide what you read, what you don't read. Like for example, let us say why there is always this fight between the BJP and the Congress. Same thing. Like you can see now recently they formed NCRT review panel in that. Why there will be always fight between the BJP and the Congress. The Congress will accuse the BJP of saffronization of the textbooks. The BJP will say that the Congress have not given too much focus on the Hindu history part. The reason is that education, that you will understand when you read Foucault, when he told knowledge is power. Because everything, when you want to dominate somebody others, you don't need to do it physically. Many times domination can be through your controlling your thoughts, controlling your ideas. And if you see Hitler, the first thing what Hitler attacked when he came to power, he didn't attack people and all. The first thing he seized was the educational centers in Germany. One of the reason is because educational centers are also the centers of thinking. So basically Hitler wanted to control what? The ideas, what will be promoted, what will be read. Why this Karl Popper, he compares Plato to Hitler in that regard? Because this Plato also gives something called a state controlled education. He will give a detailed education syllabus, what children should be taught, what children should not be taught. It is not your wish, what you tend to read. It is controlled. We will decide what you will read. And why, even if you take in history, let us take this what you call in history, there is something called as a hagiography. Okay, what is hagiography? It is the authors have written about information about rulers. Like you take this what is that? Samudragupta Moyer, who is written on him? I forgot the name of the author. Anyway, now many do not consider these sources to be highly legitimate. Why? Basically, usually they are written in the favor of the ruler. Okay, when you study history, in ancient history, I think first chapter if you go in R.S. Sharma is the I think NCRT book, which is the first chapter if you take, he speaks about how history can be reconstructed. Okay, how do you know about who is Akbar? How do you know about who is Chandragupta Maurya? Largely history has to be reconstructed, because obviously you don't have like vision, you can go back in time and then see in globe what happened at this point of time. Nobody has that power. Obviously history has been promoted, reconstructed. One is archaeology. Second one is these shasanas, what are there written. Third is text, literature, what is it. Fourth one is coins. These are different ways you can reconstruct history. Obviously when you reconstruct history, literature is one problem to reconstruct history, because literature is always in the hands of the historian who has written that history. You are getting a mind. So basically when you take certain writings, they are far from reality. It is biased, it is mainly written in favor of the, and how do you know there is a bias? When you compare the same thing with foreign authors, what they have written. Like during India, during this history, many foreign also travelled, like Huan Sang, is that Fahin, I Sing. If you compare with their sources, there is a lot of discrepancies in what has been projected. The reason being is that why many rulers wanted the history books, everybody wants to preserve their legacy. Mind. Now let us think history book in 1947 when let us think I controlled education. Now I wrote, instead of writing Gandhi is the father of the nation, I can also write Nathuram Godse is the father of the nation. He killed Gandhi, he saved India from being. It's a narrative. I can build it. You're getting. Now how do you know? Okay, Nehru is very good because you have only read good things about Nehru. There is also, see, there is a saying, no person is a saint. Now why in book? Because it is because of 60 years the Indian history was controlled by one political party. Obviously, I am not telling it is right or wrong. The point of view is that there will be always two sides of the reality. End point. And that is why you can say education is very one important tool. Why education gets politicized? Because education is a very important tool to control the people's mind. And that is why you can say every government which will come to power, they will now, for example, if you take Congress came to power. Now again they changed the history books, we told we have brought certain changes. Same thing, that's why I told, why you have to understand how this Plato etc. Plato has spoken about this years back. And the Greeks, they controlled education system. And when you read about Plato, you will understand that he gave a detailed education system, at what age what should be taught, which subject should be taught, what should be there in that subject. Why he told that? He told the present children are the future citizens. How you shape them today, that is how they will become tomorrow. So that is why they believed in what? State controlled education. So next you take down sixth one, rationalism. Rationalism. What is the meaning of the word rational? Logic or reason? What is the meaning of logic? Okay, we'll tell, okay, what is logic? It has a reason. Okay, what is reason? Basically something which can explain things. Okay, for example, if you tell it is cloudy, it might rain. There is a logic behind it. What is the logic behind it? You can explain water vapor is there, water will condense, the rain will come out. Or if you say 2 plus 2 is 4, there is a logic in it. Now, if you look at Hitler in that regard, means when we read fascism, see some people compared Plato to Hitler. That you will understand when you read Plato, that Karl Popper, he equated Plato to Hitler. But some people criticized Karl Popper, saying that you are going extreme. You cannot compare Plato to Hitler in that regard, because the major difference between Hitler and Plato was that Hitler or fascism was anti-rational. That you will understand when you read about fascism. The main characteristic of fascism was that, see, you cannot say that is wrong, but that is their idea. There is this guy called as Nietzsche. Okay, Nietzsche speaks about everything in the world should not be understood through logic. There need not be logic for everything. So the Germans in that regard, especially on Hitler, they brought lot of myths. You are going to find myths, and they wanted public to believe those myths. So when people questioned Nietzsche, or they said, why there is no logic in what you are saying? They told, don't go by logic. The reason they told, when you go by logic or rationality, it limits the human mind. Now, can you move Himalayas? We say, what is it? Emotions can move mountains, passion can move mountains. In reality, you cannot move mountains. That's symbolically been told. What is their question is that there is nothing wrong in certain myths if they evoke people's emotion, evokes people's passion. Don't go by logic. That is a debate between always the what you can say, the ultra right groups and the ultra left groups. Here they don't accept anything without reason. Here they say everything there not be a reason. Now for example, you take Ramayana in that regard. Now, I think I have told before also in GS classes, when Sadhguru had gone to Hyderabad or some in Andhra Pradesh, one of the girl asked Sadhguru, is Ramayana real first of all? So Sadhguru asked, why are you getting such a doubt? She told, I have doubt because the story goes on to saying that Ram, who was a prince in a central part of India, he went back those days when there was no transportation, etc., by walk all the way from central part of India to Sri Lanka in search of Sita, and he being a prince. At that point of time, prince, they'll get plenty of women if he had. So she told, I doubt. That is my doubt. Is it practically possible to happen? So Sadhguru said, certain times the purpose of mythologies is not that we will question them whether it is real or not. He told the messaging what is there. So he told her, do you want a husband? Tomorrow if you get kidnapped, that he will be very practical and he will tell, I will find my solution next door. Instead of coming in search of you, which is gone, let's be practical. So he told the story of Lord Ram, whether it is real or whether it is not real, he told it is about the messaging what it does. That what is that is when we say Rama Rajya. We are not speaking in terms of the Hindu Rama Rajya. We are speaking about the qualities of Ram should be there in a ruler. So that is what Nietzsche many times said, that it need not be that mythologies are always real, but they have the passion to evoke people's emotion, make them think beyond reason. But Greeks were not like that, especially the Socrates, Plato, Aristotle. They did not accept anything which was not based on reason or logic. Logic means there should be an explanation to it. So I think in this German advertisement you have seen that in I think it's on YouTube, if you go see, there is a popular advertisement like a messaging. So one teacher will be there in Germany. So the student will write 2 plus 2 is equal to 22 in exam. So she will give 0. So that student will come and fight with her. He will tell why 2 plus 2 cannot be 22. She will tell it is not logical. See 2 apples are there, 2 apples here. Now you count how much is there, 4. He will tell 2, he will draw 2, he will draw 2. Now you read, he will tell it is 22. So she will not know how to convince this fellow. So she will tell, I can't change my marks. So he will complain to his parents saying that I have written 2 plus 2. So the parents will come and tell, he is a small kid. Give him marks. Give him marks. Yeah, what he is also asking is correct. Why can't 2 plus 2 be 22? Why it has to be 4? So the teacher will feel like, what can I tell if parents are doing this? She will tell, I can't. So they will go complain to the principal that teacher is discouraging the student. She is not encouraging. So the principal will call her and tell, why don't you give marks? So how can I give marks? How can 2 plus 2 be 22? It is 4. So even the principal, the school management, everybody will fight with her, and finally they will fire her from job, and they will make the firing public. They will call her and they will tell, thank you for your services. You have worked last 2 months in our college. Your salary is 2,000 rupees per month. So take 4,000 rupees check. She will tell, no, I want 22,000 rupees check. 2 lakhs. She will tell, how? The same logic what you told 2 plus 2. Logic is something which has to have an explanation. You can tell 2 plus 2 is 22, but he has an explanation how it is 22. So Greeks stressed on reasoning, the power of reason. So that's what I told. Socrates did not accept anything which was not beyond the human capacity to understand. Plato, everything, and that's why Plato told, unless philosophers are kings or kings become philosopher, the world will not rest from its evils. So unless you have a reasonable man or a rational man leading the state, you cannot have the problems resolved. So that is why we say they give lot of emphasis on rationality. So take down rationalism. They believed in the power of reasoning. They believed in the power of reasoning. They believed in the power of reasoning, and they did not accept any idea which was not based on reason. They did not accept any idea which was not based on reason. which was not based on reason. Reason means in bracket you take on logic. Logic. What does logic mean? Which has an explanation. The other important idea, the Greek political thought, they largely spoke about the idea of justice. Okay, justice you can see in Nyaya, what you can see in our. But here you need to understand what was the Greek idea of justice. So when you have a chapter only in political science called as theories of justice. So in Indian constitution also, if you go into our preamble, there is the word justice. Okay, but you cannot just read like that. You have to first understand what is the idea of justice. And justice is not something which is constant or stagnant. It keeps changing. So during the times of let us take Greeks, the idea of justice was different compared to the present idea of justice. So today we speak about the idea of social justice, samajika nyaya. We are not only speaking about justice, we are speaking about the idea of social justice. Okay, and why we say justice is a very contested concept. Each person's idea might be different. Now for example, now one person might ask and tell, okay, what is justice? He might tell justice is treating everybody equally. One more person might say, I don't agree with it. You should not treat everybody equally. Let those who perform very well, they have to be treated better than others. Other person might tell, no, I don't agree with treating equally. You actually have to help those others who are much weaker than the stronger. There are different variants of justice. So if you take reservation, reservation comes to the third argument what we made, that those who are weaker, they have to be brought. Now if you largely go in times of ancient India, there the idea of justice was mainly based on the second argument, those who are strong. Like for example, you take India's Varna system, Brahmin, Kshatriya, Shudra, etc. It was justified. What do you mean by justified? Accepted. Why was it accepted? Because the values at that point of time was different. It was believed it is natural. Somebody is born to be this. Birth determines your thing. But as you can say, time passed by, when we see modern values crept into the society, now people started to question, okay, is this justice? Today our constitution describes what is justice. And if you go according to constitutional idea of justice, they speak out largely about social justice. Social justice includes the principle of what? Equity, not just equality. What is the difference between equality and equity? Equality means there is no discrimination. Equity means there is positive discrimination, discrimination in favor of the weaker section of the society. Example, reservation, etc., etc. So our constitution does not only speak out equality, it also speaks about equity. But the idea of equity was alien to Greeks. Idea of equity and equality was alien to Greeks. They did not believe in the idea of equality. They believed in the idea of inequality is natural. And that is when Aristotle told, from hour of birth, some are destined to be rulers, some are destined to be slaves. That we cannot change. And they also organize their society in such a way that, like how we told now, we have Varna system. In the Greeks also had threefold classification: the ruling class, the soldier class, the producer class. So this was their idea of justice. And that's why we say when you read theories of justice, it's not very in simple sense that you see social justice. No, you have to understand the ideologies which are there and what are the important ideas they promote. It's not one way. Like if you take this guy called John Rawls, you will read about John Rawls later. He says that he actually comes out with an idea and he says that this is the perfect idea. You take any society and you use this idea, 100% justice will come. What is the procedure? He'll tell it's utopian. What is the meaning of the word utopian? Not possible in real world, imaginary world. It's an imagination. Let us think tomorrow we go and settle in Mars. We want to start a civilization in Mars. Let us say in future, like Elon Musk has told, we can go. If we go, and before we enter Mars, we have to decide what kind of society we will build in Mars. What are the rules of the society? So like that, what this fellow will tell is that let us imagine today world has ended, a new world has started from tomorrow, and we want to enter this world. Before we enter the world, we will decide what should be the idea of justice. So he places everybody under something called as wheel of ignorance. Wheel of ignorance means nobody should know what is their identity, nobody should know whether there is a man or a woman, nobody should know what is their strength, nobody should know what is the weakness of the other person, nobody will know anything about anybody. Why he is telling like that? He is telling that when you want to decide, there is always a probability that you will end up in the new society being the weakest. There is always chance, there will be somebody strong, there will be somebody weak, there is equal chance that you can be that weakest. So obviously now every person is rational, he believes that every man is reasonable. When you have reason, you are logical, you know that you can be in that worst position, what you will do? What you will tend to do? There are 10 people, out of 10 people, you know that one person in the new society he can be weak, and the probability is that all 10 people in that one person can be that. What they will do? Not dominant. Now let us think what they will do when they design the new idea of justice. Like how everybody can benefit. They will give protection to the weakest. They will ensure that anybody becomes the weakest, they have sufficient protection because there is an equal chance that you can be that weakest. And that is when everybody will start thinking not from the best position, they will start thinking from the worst of position. What will happen if tomorrow I am that person? That's why I told it's a utopian idea. This can't be done in reality, nobody can forget their identity. And he also speaks about a procedure. He says that in the new kind of society what we build, the first important value what we will give to is liberty. Everybody are free to do what they want. Second important, equality of opportunity. Third important principle, he speaks about affirmative action, that is equity, positive discrimination, because he admits that even despite creating an equal opportunity, not that everybody will be able to make use of that opportunity, there will be some people who will be at the receiving end. So to empower them, we have to bring affirmative action, and this he will tell you use it in any kind of society, it will work. And that is why we consider Rawls to be a proponent of procedural idea of justice, that you will read later, procedural idea of justice. But our own Nobel laureate Amartya Sen, he challenged Rawls. He will challenge Rawls. He will tell what idea you gave. First of all, it is not practical. It is not workable in real scenario. First of all. Second argument, he will tell that what you are telling that this can be applied everywhere. So he says that my problem with your idea of justice is that you have come out with a procedure. Do so and so, so and so, you will get justice. So he told, I will give you a situation. He told, I will challenge you with a situation. Now you using your formula, you have to tell whom will you give justice to. That is the flute thing. So he says that there is one flute. Again he is also giving a hypothetical situation. Hypothetical in the sense, you cannot make any addition to what he says. You have to work within what he has given. One flute. Why I am telling that, sir, can he make another flute? No. Can you break that flute? No. There are 3 people or 3 kids who are asking the flute. One fellow is asking that I need the flute because he tells I made it. It's my hard work. But the problem is that he does not know to play the flute. Second fellow has not made the flute, but he knows how to play the flute. So he says that you give me the flute. So if I can play a flute, I will entertain people. It will come to use. Third fellow says that he does not know to make the flute, neither he can play the flute, but he says that I don't have anything. At least that fellow has the ability to make the flute, this fellow has the ability to play the flute. If you give that flute to me, it is something which I can, depend upon. So now the question is that whom will you give the flute? What is right here? Who should get the flute? Now he is telling second person. The problem lies here is that why you have to take somebody else's hard work and give it to somebody else who has not worked hard just because he has talent. Now let us think you make notes. Now other person is there, he is very talented, you know that if he reads the notes he will pass the exam, but he is not ready to make notes and all. Will you give? The point here is that there is no solution for it. That's the answer. That is what Amartya Sen says, that each one of them are correct in their own perspective. So if you are telling you should give it to the second one, it is utilitarian perspective of justice. If you tell give it to the first one, you are a capitalist. Who makes it, they will own it. That is justice. If you are telling give it to the third one, you are a socialist. That who don't have anything, you have to give it to them. And Amartya Sen says that is why he told that is very difficult. You cannot have a single procedure and tell this is how I will give justice. And Amartya Sen spoke about justice in English is only one word. Amartya Sen will bring up Indian mythology, that is Mahabharata. He will tell in Indian language, Nyaya, Niti are two different things. He told Rawls, what you are telling is Niti, it is not Nyaya. You cannot tell always Niti will lead to Nyaya. Many times you have to break the Niti to bring Nyaya. And he gives the example of Mahabharata, the conversation between Sri Krishna and Arjuna. Because when Arjuna will have to fight the Kauravas, he will be reluctant to fight. He will be in a dilemma. On the previous day of the war, he will go to Krishna and he will tell, I cannot fight. He will ask, why you cannot fight? He will tell, this is not a Niti. Why he will tell? Because one, according to the procedural justice, you cannot fight your own brothers. Second one, he will tell, in the opposite camp, my own guru is there. This, what is that? Dronacharya. I cannot fight Dronacharya. I cannot break the Niti. So what Krishna will tell is that Nyaya is bigger than Niti. He says certain times you should break Niti to establish Nyaya. So that is when Amartya Sen says that when you come to Indian philosophical system, there are two different things. Nyaya is different, Niti is different, and that is why we told justice is not simple idea. Justice is not something that because we will tell now you want to enter services. Why you want to give justice to people? If you don't, you yourself does not know what is justice, then how can you give justice to others? That starts with the Greeks. The Greeks will come out with one idea of justice, but largely that idea is not acceptable today. Because why? Values have changed, ideas have changed. Got it? So take note. According to Plato, justice is a very important aspect of any society. According to Plato, justice is a very important aspect of any society, and he believed that justice is a virtue. He believed that justice is a virtue. What do you mean by virtue? What is the meaning of the word virtue? Something that is good. Virtue is something that good qualities one has to possess. Okay. Why I am thinking now, whenever you read, you please go into keywords like virtue. Don't just blindly read and go. The reason is that let us take the ask in ethics question. They'll ask, what are the important virtues that a civil servant should have? If you don't know the meaning of virtue, obviously you won't be able to write them. So good qualities. So justice is a virtue, means it's a good quality, is a virtue that enables citizens to discharge their duties. That enables citizens to discharge their duties. Next important characteristics of Greek political thought, take down as their belief in inequality. Belief in inequality. So, you know, the Greeks or even some ideologies within political philosophies like neoliberalism, you will read it later when you read about classical liberalism, modern liberalism, neoliberalism. You have Hayek, Nozick, Friedman, they are all the important proponents, means the believers in the philosophy. Even Greeks to a certain extent, you can call them that they believed in social Darwinian theory. Okay, if you want in bracket, you take down in bracket social Darwinian theory. Now, what do you mean by social Darwinian theory? What is social Darwinianism or social Darwinian theory? How many of you know about Darwin? Okay, what did he speak about? What is the main idea behind the theory of evolution? Survival of the fittest. Now the same thing that is for animal kingdom, what you applied, you apply to human society. The same logic what he gave there, you apply it to, that is why we call it a social Darwinianism. To your society you apply. The people who believe in this idea, they also believe that only the fittest should survive. No help should be given to those who are weak. Let them perish. Why? That is nature. That is how nature has designed. So obviously this idea, it says that if you interpret in a broader terms, it goes against the principle of affirmative action. It goes against any kind of help given to the weaker. Means in the more aggressive form, especially this neoliberal, I don't know, that ideology which emerges later, they say why should the government help the poor? Okay, neoliberal theory when you read, it believes in minimal state. Minimal state means state should perform just minor functions, policing functions, giving you security. State is not here to feed everybody. Like if you go by social Darwin theory, they oppose everything, is Anna Bhagya scheme, etc. They should not do it only. What if people will die? Let them die. Why? We can't help, that is nature. Nature is designed humans in such a way that the stronger ones will evolve. If they want to survive, they will evolve. The weaker ones which cannot evolve, they will die. You should not. So that is why some also say this is a bit anti-humanistic. But that is what the theory they believe in. One aspect of the theory is that it believes that inequality is natural. When humans are born, everybody are not born with equal capacities or capabilities. Some are born with superior qualities, some are born with inferior qualities, and they say it is justiciable or it is correct to protect the stronger, to let go of the weak. And why we use social Darwin? Social Darwin was an important part of fascism, Hitler's theory. And if you see Hitler's theory, that is what Hitler said, the strong will survive, the weak will go to the well. So they have to die, there is nothing else can't be done. So in some way the Greek thinkers also, to a certain extent, they did believe that inequality was natural. Everybody are not born equal. So take it down. The Greeks considered equality as impractical, unnatural and undesirable. The Greeks considered equality as impractical, unnatural and undesirable. And they also believed that the Greeks had to dominate the barbarians. The Greeks have to dominate the barbarians. What do you mean by barbarians? In bracket you take down uncivilized. Have to dominate the barbarians, in bracket uncivilized. What do you know uncivilized? Those who do not have a proper conduct, etc. So logically if you see, they are using this inequality as a reason to justify the Greeks' domination over other civilizations. Greeks believed that they were always superior to others. And one common thing you can find in most of these ideas, that those who believe in social Darwinian theory, they always speak about dominating others. For example, take the Aryans, they dominated the Jews in that regard. And if you also look into the British when they came into India, they also used the concept called as white man's burden. In name of what they are telling, Indians are barbarians, uncivilized, we are civilized, so we will dominate them. It is correct to dominate. Okay. But one thing about Greeks is that though they believed inequality is natural, but they believed equality within a class. Means among Greeks there should be equality. Means if you can divide the Greeks into three classes. What are the three classes? The ruling class, the soldier class, the producer class. Now obviously the ruling class will have more powers. Okay. This class won't have so much powers. And they told this is correct, it is inequality. Why? Because some people are born to rule, some people are born to serve. But within the class, means among the rulers, among the soldiers, there was equality. You cannot discriminate one soldier against other soldier, because all belongs to the same class. So write down. However, the Greeks believed equality within the class. However, the Greeks believed equality within the class. Equality within the class. And the last feature you take down, emphasis on individualism. Emphasis on individualism. So if you look at the Indian political thought, largely they always speak about community. Okay, there is less emphasis. It does not mean in Greek political thought there is no emphasis on community. There is, but compared to Indian political thought, they also give importance to individual elements, individual thinking, not just community thinking. That is why we say they also emphasize on individualism. So take down, the Greek thinkers gave prominent position to individuals and their ideas, gave prominent position to individuals and their ideas. Unlike the Indian political thought, which gives more focus to community, unlike the Indian political thought, which gives more focus to community and spirituality, more focus to community and spirituality. So these are the major features of the ancient Greek political thought. So now we have to dissect this individually. What is individually? Ideas of Socrates, Plato and Aristotle. So next connecting paragraph you take down. The above features can be understood. The above features can be understood through understanding the writings of Socrates, Plato, understanding the writings of Socrates, Plato and Aristotle, and Aristotle. And understanding these thinkers is essential. Understanding these thinkers is very essential to understand the Western political thought as a whole. To understand the Western political thought as a whole. WHOLE, whole. Got the point? So this is about your basic idea of ancient Greek political ideas. Now what we have to do is that now we have to go to the three thinkers who are important. Socrates is not there for the exam. You don't find questions on Socrates in exam, but you will have to know about Socrates to understand Plato. And many times they might indirectly ask question on Socrates, like they might ask you a question on the ideas of his master never faded from the mind of Plato comment. Basically the master is Socrates. His ideas never faded from the minds of Plato means how Plato is deeply influenced by the thinking of Socrates. So Socrates, Plato, Aristotle. Socrates was the teacher of Plato. Plato is the teacher of Aristotle. You are getting a point. And when you understand their readings, especially Plato and Aristotle, you find that Aristotle was one of the greatest Platonists. Platonist means followers of Plato, because his ideas are shaped by Plato. But he is also the greatest critic of Plato. He also criticizes Plato on various accounts. And we see that compared to Socrates and Plato, Aristotle is a bit more practical. Comparatively, not completely. Comparatively is a bit more practical. Means he comes to the present world, how it will work in function. Socrates and Plato are more in world of ideas. Okay, they live in their own world. They will try to construct in their head, this is the world what we should live in. Whether it is possible or not is secondary, but they prescribe this is what an ideal society should be. So the whole Greek political thought, especially of Plato, is about how do we build this ideal society. What do you mean by ideal society? A model society, how it should be, a society which is based on happiness, a society which is based on the perfect society, how do we build? So that is the whole idea of Socrates and Plato, especially Plato. He goes into it, how do we do it? Now you take down as Socrates, first one. You don't need to go into details and history of Socrates from exam point of view. Don't go into much, because if you take IGNO material, they go into bit of depth, so much, but have a crisp idea that what he is known as, what is his contribution. And largely Socrates has spoken about a lot of ethics. In ethics you will read more about him, but here we don't need so much, we will limit it to political philosophy. So take down, Socrates was the master of Plato. Socrates was the master of Plato. And Plato was deeply influenced by Socrates. Plato was deeply influenced by Socrates. His influence was so much that Professor Maxey, his influence was so much that Professor Maxey, who is Professor Maxey? He is a commentator, means who studied about Socrates. Professor Maxey writes, in Plato, Socrates lived again. In Plato, Socrates lived again. In Plato, Socrates lived again. What do you mean by that? So basically Socrates was killed, or he was given poison. But in Plato, Socrates lived again means though Socrates died, his ideas continued with Plato. So when you read Plato, Plato has written a book called as the Republic, and he brings a character called as Socrates in these dialogues. So that is what we say, that he lived again. It was Plato who brought Socratic idea, and that is a close connection between what? Plato and Socrates. So in exam they might ask this question, when they ask in question they might ask, in Socrates Plato lived again, Professor Maxi comment. So basically here, see one problem what happened, why many students struggle with Western political thought is that they, especially non-humanities background students, they are more oriented how, just by arting and writing. In social science subjects that won't work. Any social science subject if you take, or even in literature subject if you take, it's about you have to express your understanding to it. Okay, and that's why I told in UPSC one bigger problem for non-humanities background students, not all of them, some of them, is they struggle to write. They are not creative, they are not imaginative, they don't understand it, they will try to read everything. There is no need of, once you have read, you have understood, you have to express it in your own words. Yeah, the question is largely speaking about what, if they give this statement, the relation between Plato and Socrates. The second part of the question is about how in Plato's ideas Socrates' imprint is there. Then what you need to explain, when you read Plato's ideas, you have to identify where are the Socratic element. It's not that completely Socratic element, there are certain ideas which is own, unique is also there, but it's a value addition. That is all you need to express in your own words. What students will do, they don't do that. If you give an explanation for it, they'll just by heart that. Now what will happen in exam, he will pick up one more statement from somewhere else. Some person has commented on Plato and Socrates, he'll give that. Now what will happen, they're only used to reading this statement and writing, suddenly they don't know what to write. Why they don't know what to write? Simple, they have not thought about it. And that's why I told, UPSC knows that very well. Okay, when they want to change the question paper, they're not giving out of syllabus and all. They'll just make sure they'll test your understanding. That's all. All they need to do is change the question types. Now the problem what happens is that, like, if a student is not well read, or he is not well prepared, or he does not know how to prepare. Let us say you go like your degree approach in GS1, GS2, GS3. Now they all they'll fall like a pack of cards. Why? The main problem is not that they are not intelligent. The main problem lies with their method of preparation. It's not about which notes you are reading. You read any notes. The problem is that, have you understood these ideas in a systematic way? So if you have understood, for an understood person, it does not matter that what is the question, because he knows the concept. He will write it. For a person who have not understood, what he will bank on, unless you give the question that way, unless if the question comes that way, you won't be able to write. And don't live in your dreamland saying that question will come this way. Question will come on this topic, but you cannot predict the question saying that this is the question what it will come. Got it? So here when the statement is there, the broad understanding of sentence is simple. In Plato, Socrates lived again. Socrates had died, but he continued to live. How? Because his ideas continued to guide Plato, and Plato was deeply influenced by this guy, and in every writings of Plato you find that Socrates' thinking is there. Okay, that is why Professor Maxi told what? In Plato, Socrates lived again. Next to take down. Socrates is also considered to be the father of philosophy. Socrates is also considered the father of philosophy. Father of philosophy. And he is also given credit. He is also given credit. He is also given credit for the origin of ethics. He is also given credit for the origin of ethics, which is a branch of philosophy. Which is a branch of philosophy. Branch of philosophy. Branch of philosophy. Next you take down, one of the most important ideas, one of the most important ideas of Socrates, important ideas of Socrates, which forms the basis of Plato's thinking, the basis of Plato's thinking is the theory of ideas, which forms the basis of Plato's thinking is the theory of ideas, theory of ideas. So next we take on subheading as theory of ideas. We have to understand that what is this theory of ideas and what was Socrates' ideas which influenced Plato. Now before going into theory of ideas, in a side bracket in box you can take down, what you need to take down is first you listen, then you take down. When we read political philosophy or political science, this will apply to next thinkers also. There is something called as, whenever you read books, you will come across something called as school of thought. What do you mean by that school of thought? We will usually say this particular thinker, he belongs to which school of thought? What do you mean by, first of all, school of thought? Then we will discuss about which school of thought one belongs to. So you can say that there are 3-4 scholars or 5-6 scholars who belong to a similar school of thought, means their ideas are similar. Like that there are multiple school of thought. But when we are speaking about theory of ideas, within political philosophy, there are 2 major schools of thought. You are getting my point? 2 important concepts. We can categorize scholars belong to which school of thought they believe in. One major school of thought is the school of idealism. This Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, they all largely belong to this. The other is school of materialism, and this is very important, school of materialism. Karl Marx belongs to this idea or this school of thought. Now you have to understand what is the difference between the two, because that is, you are getting mind, this is not we are going narrowly, we are going broader idea. So the difference between these 2 schools of thought is that, like if you take Socrates, Plato, etc., they believe that the world which we live in, it is shaped by ideas, not by matter. Now here I have to again, sir, what is idea, what is matter? Matter is something which you can see, you can touch, like he is sitting on a bench or a chair, that is matter. Or in subtle things, something which is not permanent, it is matter. Anything like money, not permanent. Why it is not permanent? Let us think till 2015, you had 1000 rupees notes. On November 8th, when they demonetized, it lost the value. So this school of thought, the idealism, they don't give importance to matter, they give importance to ideas. They say matter changes according to ideas. So it is very important for you to study ideas, not study matters. Like similar to the Indian philosophy of Maya, whatever you see, that is not the reality. So usually this school of thought is anti-materialistic. They say don't fall behind the material stuff. And largely you can say Buddha also belongs to this school of thought. Buddha is also anti-materialistic. Don't fall behind materialism. That is one part of the philosophy. The other important philosophy, if you want to understand the world, you have to understand the ideas. Okay, now we are living in the earth. Okay, now you might be very narrow in the sense that you are living in this world, family relationship is there, etc., etc. This is your world. But some scholars also believe that there is a world beyond what you can see. You are part of a universe. The universe has a law. You need to understand that law. You need to understand those ideas. Only when you understand those ideas, you will be able to understand the present world. But Marx is not like that, he is ulta. Marx says that it is ideas does not shape the world, it is matter which shapes your ideas. You are getting mind? Like if you think you are poor, you think in your head, okay, you are poor, but material reality is different. You are getting a point. Now you cannot come, now I cannot come and tell, if somebody asks, tell me your civil service journey, I cannot tell I struggled very hard, I was very poor. No, material difference. My father was a doctor, my mother was a business woman, you had all the facilities. Means material conditions, what I had, that shaped your ideas. When you don't have material condition, the Marx told, it is not ideas which shapes matter, it is matter which shapes your ideas. Like God. Marx says that it is not that God created humans, it is man who created the idea of God. And why he created the idea of God? Material necessity. Like in olden times, if you take, there in anthropology also you will study about how God, this worshipping came into event. One theory, it says that when humans were struggling to face natural disasters, it was beyond human capacity at that point of time, right? Because humans did not have technology. Today we have the capacity or technology capacity. Largely they put faith on God, the world which cannot be seen. Because the material condition at that point of time made man to create God, because he wanted some sense of confidence. Or Marx, he calls religion as opium of masses. Opium in olden times, it was given, opium means ganja, it was mainly given as what, to resist pain when they used to do operations, etc. So during capitalism, when working class, they used to go to a lot of hardships, their conditions were very difficult. Religion gave them some sense of relaxation or satisfaction. And he told, who created this idea of religion? The material conditions what you are living in. So Marx says that matter is important, not ideas are not. Like you hear Lokyata philosophy in Indian school of thought, that gives importance to matter or ideas. They will tell this rebirth, karma, dharma is all nonsense. They believe that you enjoy life. So these are two main schools. One school which says that ideas are important, because of ideas it shapes your matter. Now if you take caste system in India, it can be explained two ways. How did Varna emerge? One, you can tell through school of idealism. An idea came. No, that idea is what Brahma created four things. The school of materialism, Varna system came into being based on our material reality. Means when humans started to live, over a period of time what happened? Certain people became experts in certain jobs, functional specialized. Then they got the idea that why can't we do this to preserve the society? You are understanding the difference? One says that because of the idea, Varna system came into being. The second says that why Varna system came, it is not because of the idea, because of what material condition you are living in, that gave you the idea of Varna. So Plato, Socrates, they all belong to which school? They belong to the first school, school of ideas. They believe that ideas can shape the world. Ideas are important. That is why they think more about outside world, not just the material world. On the other hand, Marx, he says that ideas are a lot important, because what Marx says that, he says that if you look at the working class, they have not been empowered, they have not gone. Why? He blames it on Plato, Socrates, Aristotle. All these people gave importance to intellectual abilities, they didn't give importance to physical work. So he says that what is more important for man? So he says that first of all you have to eat, to think. You have to do physical labor, that is the material reality. You cannot just think and tell, I will survive. So for Marx, he always gave importance to material world, matter. Plato, Socrates always they disregarded matter. Why? Because they told matter is not permanent. They gave only importance to what? Which has permanence. Ideas have permanence. Okay, now they tell tree. Okay, now you will tell, sir, this is tree. The point is that Plato will tell, how do you know it is a tree? See, there is sandalwood tree, there is teak wood, there is other types of trees. Okay, all are different types, sandalwood, teak, etc. But they all come into a category called as tree. How do you know it is a tree? So basically there are certain characteristics of a tree which you have to know, then only you know that is a tree. Tomorrow I will bring what you can say, a carbon wood model of tree, and I tell this is a tree. You can see it looks like a tree, but is it actually a tree? No. Why? Because it does not fit into all the characteristics what a tree has to perform. So what Plato says or Socrates says, that whatever you see, that is not the reality, unless if you have understood the idea. So now what is the importance of this Socrates in this theory of ideas is that he says that to understand happiness, first of all you have to know what is the definition of happiness. He says, okay, happiness, you are happy. How do you say you are happy? What is the definition of happiness? And that is when he goes into the thing is that there are two kind of knowledge, true knowledge, false sense of knowledge. True knowledge is when you really have that kind of knowledge to understand the important ideas of the world. Then you will be able to understand what is the idea of good life. See, when you say good life, right? Okay, let us think even more better example. If you take good governance, World Bank comes out with an agenda of, okay, they have fixed certain parameters, certain ideas. If your performance matches those parameters, that is good governance. Okay, let us think tomorrow I will change it. I will change it to what? Inequality is good. The more inequality is there, more higher is your ranking. Now you can tell, how is that, sir, good life? No, that is my idea of a good life. Ideas can be distorted. So Socrates told that you have to get a correct idea that what is a good life. To understand what is good life, you need to have true knowledge. Only when you have true knowledge, you will be able to really understand what is the purpose of a life, what is the purpose of a good life. When you have that kind of understanding, you won't fall trap to these illusions. The world is illusion. What is an illusion? Now many people will think, many people will believe, some of you will believe is that what, so my life will only change after I become IAS officer. That is in your illusion. Many of you are writing the exam saying that once I become IAS, you know, I am the most happiest person on the earth. All my problems are resolved. I am completely satisfied. You write the exam, you fail in prelims. You will see at a person who is writing mains, his life is better, he is writing mains. That fellow will fail in mains. He look at a person who has gone to interview, his life is better, he is given UPSC interview. A person who has gotten an interview, he is unhappy. I could not clear the exam, my life would have been much better. Not if not IAS, Indian Postal Service, Indian Audit Account Service, some service, government job. A person who is in Indian Audit Service, if you go ask him, he will tell my life would have been much better if I was in Indian Police Service. Power is there. If you ask with the police service guy, he will tell what is here, nothing is here apart from saluting the few politicians, etc. Not much power I have. I want to become IAS because you can see the largest number of people who reappear for the exam are either the IRS guys or the police guys. Maximum number of, you see anywhere, like Saurabh Narendra, he is writing the exam again. 198, like last time in a test series, one guy we did one session, he is writing the exam again now. You ask an IAS guy, now let us think some person who is in Tripura, he will tell maybe I would have been very happy if I was in South India. Now you ask a person who is in South India, I would have been very happy if I am in my home state. You are in home state, I would have been very happy if I am in southern part of Karnataka, not in North Karnataka. Or some people who has got even southern part of Karnataka, he would have been much happier if I got this department. If you ask that person who has got every department, he would have told my life would have been happy if I had a good family life. You are getting the point. So the world is an illusion. the illusion what Socrates is told, you live in an illusion, illusion in the sense that this happens, my life will be happy, and you are attaching your happiness to material possession. If you have something, then you will be happy, your problems will. Socrates tells that is a wrong notion of understanding of life. Matter can never bring you happiness. Opposite to KGF. KGF says that greed is good, greed is important. That is one more school of thought. No, that is there. They say this, all this philosophy and all is very nice to hear. But that is what Socrates' philosophy is, that you need to understand what is, for him, matter, that is power, money, etc., anything is not permanent. It is just an illusion. It creates an illusion that you will be happy. If you take even people like Jim Carrey, the Hollywood actor, he told, I want everybody to become rich, to understand that being rich does not make you happy. There are theories given in, I think 2 months back or 3 months back, there is an article written in Hindu newspaper by this Bernie Sanders, the American one of the presidential candidate was there. He wrote that it is perfectly normal to be angry against capitalism, and they told capitalism creates the illusion of what? Happiness, because they have done studies where they saw that beyond, I think 75 or some, I don't know, $75,000 or something like that, beyond that they say that your happiness, if you take, they've used mathematical formula until your happiness will grow beyond certain amount of money. Beyond that amount of money, how much ever money you do, your happiness does not increase, it falls a flat. You are getting mind? This study shows a middle path. They tell you need money to be happy, but there is a limit. After that limit, how much ever you earn, it is not going to amplify your happiness. And that is where in America they had proposed a bill which did not pass through. They are telling that every person who earns behind something 990,000 or 990 million or something like that, all that money should be taxed and taken over by the government. Okay, that bill didn't pass. It was an idea which they promoted. So Socrates belongs to this school of thought who believes that material possession cannot make you happy. And this was influenced by Plato. Plato was also deeply influenced by this, and Plato actually explained it even better when he told what is illusion. We live in a world of illusion. For that, what Plato did, he brought something called as allegory of caves. Okay, the word allegory means trying to explain something in form of stories or poem. So he tried to explain his theory of ideas through a story or through an example. Now what did Plato say? He told, let us think, this is the actual world which we live in. We can equate it to let us take a cave. You are living in a cave. And let us take, the cave is completely pitch dark, it is completely dark. The only one source through which the light can come through is this opening. It is the only source into the cave where light can come. And there are 3 people, okay, 3 or anyone, they are all tied up to a rope. And you have to understand, they are facing this side. Their back is facing the opening of the cave, their face is facing the end of the cave, and here they have lit campfire, fire is burning. The problem with these guys is that they don't know backing, what is behind their back, and whatever light is coming here, and the world outside is different. Okay, a bird might be flying, etc. Now whenever, let us take, a bird flies here, the reflection comes here. Now this fellow might look at that shape which is thing, he might think it is a dinosaur. He thinks it is a dinosaur because he does not know it is a bird. Why he does not know it is a bird? He is not, he is inside a cave, he does not know what is there. So everything what he sees, he is in his own assumption that is a reality. And finally one person breaks the rope with lot of struggle, and he finally runs outside the cave. Once he comes out the same, he will get shocked to see the world is very different. Now what all these years I was thinking, that's not. The story is to explain the idea, what Plato is saying, that the rope represents ignorance, or the cave represents ignorance, you are in dark. The rope represents arrogance, means you are not ready to see the reality, you are just living in your own dreamland. The rope symbolizes what? The light is the knowledge, you know where the light is coming from, but you are reluctant to go towards the light. It is only after a lot of struggle, finally you escaped ignorance, arrogance, and you went. Then you saw that all these years what I was thinking was the reality is not the reality. And that is what Plato said, the problem in human world was that humans were living in their false sense of knowledge. They didn't have true knowledge. When they didn't have true knowledge, they believed whatever they saw. He is correlating to whatever you see now in the real world, that might not be the reality. To understand the reality, you have to go into the world of ideas. That is what you have to come outside the cave. That's the point. Now many of you are in the same stage. You have your own assumption about the exam. Right, like Ravichandra said, Agbod, Marbod, Madi, Madleveko. Munnur score madbodu, easy, very easy. You follow one set of notes, next time 300 is delivered to you. You live in that world illusion. Why? It gives you happiness. It makes you comfortable. It makes you think, okay, this much it is. And always it is difficult to break from the thread. You have to come out of your comfort zone. Once you come out of it, then you will understand, okay, all this time what I understood about this exam is completely flawed, completely false. Same idea, this is what this Socrates and Plato told. Humans, they go by material world. And see, that's what I'm telling you. You see during the end of any exam season, like prelims approaches, there will be many programs in other academies also. Master prelims in 24 hours. Master prelim in 24 hours. Or read these notes, 300 is guaranteed. That fellow who has given the notes only has not scored 300. Has not even written the exam. Now the problem what happens, you are attracted by what? You are attracted by the material world or the illusion saying that even I am going to score a 300. The problem is that you are not ready to come out of the cave. You are not ready to come out of the darkness. And many times the darkness is created. Many times the industry also works in such a way that they create that darkness, like Byju's in that regard if you take. There is no, if somebody wants to share the video, share, I don't care. Reality is reality. Like Byju's, you come first rank, 5th rank, 10th rank. How many of these, some student like is in a cave, sitting in some remote part of Karnataka, thinking that video is watching on Byju's, you will get him that rank. I think Byju's you have checked, you just open Byju's website and you check something for notes, immediately you will get a call. Come to Byju's, we will create you the next first rank. Illusion. Again, the student lives in his own illusion. He thinks what, okay, he thinks that, okay, if, see here also what happened, that's why, like, I don't know about like Vinay sir, I know, he is never, I believe in yesterday's class also, batch 7 I watched his video. He told you have to study, if you don't study 2 years, get a job, or 3rd year you try to get a job. See, end of the day this is business, we are doing business, nobody is denying a fact. Nobody is denying, we are doing business. For example, if you take our poster only, forget about, I will take our poster only, Saurabh Narendra, Netra Meti, etc. They are all our test series student. So if you ask, sir, would have they not got rank if they had not come to your test series? No, they might have not got rank writing another test series also. You are getting a point. It's not that these people were made because they entered our classroom, and obviously, that's why I am telling, nobody can make anybody. You have to become your own topper. What we can do is that create a necessary right thing or wrong thing. This is what you need to do. But if you tell 100% I will guarantee you 300, most successful option in present times, it's like selling this is most successful option. Some people don't know English only. Simple, you cannot, if you reality if you go, unless UPSC changes their pattern and say that we will make it vernacular, without knowing English you cannot crack this exam. So that is what Plato also told, Socrates also told. Plato related it to what? Athens. He told why these rulers are like this, these rulers are living in their own world, far away from reality, they don't know what is, and that is why he told, he stressed on education. He told once you break this rope, you enter the outside world, then you will understand all this time you are living in an illusion. And that is what Socrates also told, you are living in an illusion of happiness. And that source of that happiness is what? Material possessions. And that is also the present world, if you link, that is the reality. You see, for example, these matrimonial pages, bridegroom required or bride required, tall, beautiful, this caste and this creed. Okay, and second one is that what, I don't know about other societies, largely in our society, they largely think about the end, think about whether our son or daughter will be happy if they marry this person. It's more about business. How much is the salary? Means what? The more salary you earn, the more happiness your daughter will get. See, that is the reality in the world. Like for example, like there are many harsh realities will be very hard to digest, because one of my friend, he was searching for girl. The girl's family like this fellow is IRS, so other guy is IAS. So they don't know IAS is always better than the IRS. The problem is that they got married, they got divorced in 3 months. That's a different game together. The reason is why they don't check for compatibility. It's more about business relation. Obviously, it is business relations. For example, many times you can see that how can this guy be a match to this girl? The guy is backed by, you can say, money or by power. And that is what Socrates said, will that guy happiness or is that illusion of your happiness? And you can say, I think they have done a documentary on high society lives. They don't have a life. And the other thing is that most of the Facebook, Twitter, etc. are those people who actually are most unhappy with their personal lives. Again, presenting what a fun sense of reality to the onlookers. Like some person who is studying UPSC, he will look at the a Twitter page or WhatsApp. What I am doing in life, I am neither enjoying life, I am neither passing the exam. You look at these people, at least they are enjoying life. But in reality, you don't know that what is the background of what is happening within that relationship or etc. And that is what the Socrates told. The problem lies is what you need to have to study not world of matter, the world of ideas. Only then you will be able to understand the reality or the true meaning of happiness. This was the basis of his theory of ideas. Okay, and that is why we say that two schools are there: school of idealism, school of materialism. So in bracket you take down, school of idealism believes. School of idealism believes School of idealism believes that ideas are superior to matter. Ideas are superior to matter, and ideas shape the matter. Ideas are superior to matter, and ideas shape the matter. Ideas shape the matter. Okay, example you can give: Socrates, Plato belong to school of idealism. Socrates, Plato, they belong to school of idealism. Other is what? School of materialism. So here you take down, it believes that matter shapes ideas. Matter shapes ideas. Example, Karl Marx. Example, Karl Marx. Example, Karl Marx. Yeah, Karl Marx. Next you take down Socrates says that universe has two aspects. Socrates says that universe has two aspects. You can take down in type of a flow chart. It has two aspects. One is physical, the other is spiritual. Has two aspects. One is physical, the other is spiritual. So in physical world, what is the importance they give to, or what matters? It is the matter. Okay, take down. Take down, it is matter. And how can you say this is matter? Like table chair is there. You can observe, you can touch, and you can see. So the basis of knowing the knowledge is observation. It is through observation you can get the knowledge. And the spiritual aspect of the universe comprises of what? Ideas. Ideas you cannot observe, you cannot touch. Ideas can be only understood to what? Logic. Only when you have logic or reason, in bracket logic, or you can take down reason, you are able to understand the universe. So you take down, many scholars were just trying to understand. Many scholars were just trying to understand the physical. Many scholars were just trying to understand the physical, chemical. Many scholars were just trying to understand physical, chemical, and biological properties of the universe. They were just trying to understand the physical, chemical, and biological properties of the universe. But for Socrates, it was more important for Socrates, it was more important to understand the spiritual aspects of the universe. Spiritual aspects of the universe, that is the important ideas, especially important ideas, especially the idea of what constitutes a good life, especially of an idea of what constitutes a good life. What constitutes a good life? And for Socrates, what is the purpose of your life? What is the purpose of your life? This is one of the questions they were asked in one of the interview candidate. Not now, long back they asked, what is the purpose of your life? Why are you born? See, why we call this as normative? There is no one answer to it. It cannot be verified. It's not scientific, it is normative, it is relative. So that person had given an answer that struggle is the purpose of life. Every human beings are born to struggle. I am also born to struggle. But for Socrates, the purpose of life was to be happy. Again, mind, it is not to be rich, or it is to be happy. So for Socrates, the purpose of life is happiness. For Socrates, the purpose of life is happiness. The question now comes, what is happiness? That's a bigger question, right? Okay, what is happiness? This question they've asked in ethics paper, right? If you go into 2014 or 15 ethics paper, first question, what is your understanding of happiness? Do you think everybody will aspire for happiness? Out of 10 people, 8 people will tell, I want to become IAS and I want to serve people, that is what give me happiness. The examiner will also know this fellow is bluffing. You are getting mind, that is all narrow answers which lacks any depth. Why we call this as political philosophy? First of all, political philosophy. Philosophy is only a subject. Okay, in philosophy there is two things, epistemology. You have to turn from where knowledge came, how knowledge comes, what is what. You will start with questioning. So ultimate purpose of philosophy is understanding the way of life. What is the purpose of life? So political philosophy basically means understanding the purpose of the state. Why the state is doing, what is so good about the state. And that is what we say, that especially in essay paper, in ethics paper, those who have this philosophical bent in their mind, they will do better. Those who don't have that philosophical bent, they won't be able to understand only many ethics questions, many essay questions. If you see last few years, they are giving a lot of philosophical essays. Now one understanding is what some student, I have read political science, obviously my essay score will be high. No, unless you are good in political philosophy. Okay, it's not only political philosophy. Has your mind, has that ability to, okay, that look at that quote and link it to life, the larger purpose of life. And for these kind of essays, there is no one way of writing. You cannot tell this is the only way I'll write and this is how I'll get marks. No, it's your idea, it's your feeling. The essay is one paper which they give you the room for to bring your ideas on paper. So unless you don't have that philosophical mindset or bent in that regard, many times what happens, you will struggle in essay. Why? Because you don't have that understanding only. Now you will see it as what, you will see it as only as a quote or something. I don't know, one fellow had written, ship in its harbor is not meant for its sail, it might be safe. Now that fellow had written about something about submarine and all. So obviously you can make sure that that fellow has not understood the context of the essay only, or it's the purpose of life. Purpose of life is to struggle, is to take a risk. Now you also, that same essay can be applied to your preparation also. Like some students, what they will do, they don't want to go to sea, they don't want to write test, they don't want to see anything which is difficult. They will remain safe in their harbor, come to classroom, sit in classroom, listen to class, ಆಗ್ಬೋದು ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದು ಮಾಡೋಣ ಮಾಡೋಣ ಆಗೋಣ ಆಗೋಣ ಹಾಗೆ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. Don't do any work. ರವಿಚಂದ್ರನ್ ಅವನವರು ಒಂದು ಸೆಷನ್, ಆಗ್ಬೋದು ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದು ಯಾಕೆ ಆಗಲ್ಲ ಮಾಡೇ ಮಾಡಿ. ಒನ್ ಮೋರ್ ಸೆಷನ್ ಪ್ರದೀಪ್ ಈಶ್ವರ್, ಯಾಕೆ ಗುರು ಏನಕ್ಕೆ ಇಲ್ಕುತ್ತೆ ಬಾ ಮಾಡೋಣ ಹಾಗೆ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ, ಯಾವನ್ ಹೇಳಿದ್ದು. Inspirational, motivational, but the end product, will it give it result? Pradeep Ishwar himself has not been able to go beyond second PUC. Reality, that's not fake. Reality. That is what Plato told. If you live in this world of your own illusion, reality is different. And reality will be always tough to digest. Reality will be always tough to understand. And that is what Socrates wanted, is that you need to have a true understanding. What exactly is the purpose of life? What exactly brings happiness? And many times I told, philosophy is what you need to understand. Like Gautama Buddha, his philosophy what? See, no philosophy is 100%. You have to accept or disagree. You can disagree. Buddha told 4 important key themes of his philosophy. The world is full of sorrows. The root cause of sorrow is desire. One way you have to can come out this cycle of this sorrow is to eliminate desires. And fourth one, how to eliminate desires, he spoke about the 8-fold path, Ashtanga Marga. That was his philosophy, the nutshell of his philosophy. Some people might not believe that philosophy. Some people might disagree with that philosophy. That's a different thing. So this is Plato's philosophy. For him, now we have to go through what is his understanding of happiness. So take note, the subheading as, what is happiness according to Socrates? What is happiness according to Socrates? What is happiness according to Socrates. So there you take down, Socrates makes a difference. Socrates makes a difference between real happiness or illusion of happiness. Real happiness and illusion of happiness. And according to Socrates, only real knowledge or true knowledge, will enable us, to understand the meaning of happiness. Now it comes to the second point. Okay, to understand true happiness you need true knowledge. Then the question is, what is true knowledge according to him? So now next you take down subheading as Socrates' theory of knowledge. Socrates' theory of knowledge. Socrates' theory of knowledge. Socrates was dissatisfied. With those who are trying to understand. Socrates were dissatisfied with those who are trying to understand just the material aspects of life. Socrates was dissatisfied with those who are trying to understand the material aspects of life. And for Socrates, it was more important to understand the spiritual aspects of life. It is more important to understand the spiritual aspects of life, and also what constitutes a good life. What constitutes a good life is not just understanding life, he is also bringing the understanding what is a good life. So that's what I told, it is normative. What is good according to him might not be to others. Next you take down, to understand good life, he said one has to develop. To understand good life, one has to develop the knowledge of good life. One has to develop the knowledge of good life. Next you take down as a chart. He categorized knowledge into two types. One is the real knowledge. Second one is illusion of knowledge. Real knowledge, and illusion of knowledge. Under real knowledge, you can take down, it is a fundamental concept that does not change. It's a fundamental concept that does not change. Here it is superficial, it keeps changing. Means in simple sense, if you break down, what is something which is fundamental that does not change? An idea. What is something which is not permanent, which keeps changing? It is matter. So if you limit your knowledge only to study about the material aspects, that is an illusion of knowledge. When you bring understanding of an idea, that is what? Fundamental knowledge. That is what? True knowledge. So he wanted what? Real knowledge to understand the purpose of a good life. Okay. So remember, two types of knowledge he spoke about: real knowledge and what? Illusion of a knowledge. Illusion of a knowledge is something what you just focusing on the material aspect of it. True knowledge is something what you are focusing on the spiritual aspect or the ideas in that regard. So this and all fundamentally where we have to relate is to Plato. When Plato is saying that philosopher king should be there, the philosopher king should not have only illusion of knowledge. He should have what? The true knowledge. Only when you have true knowledge, then you will be able to understand important ideas. So take down, Socrates says, matter keeps changing. Matter keeps changing and it is not permanent. It is not permanent. Hence, matter keeps changing, it is not permanent. Hence you cannot have permanent knowledge on matter. On other hand, the idea is permanent. On other hand, the idea is permanent. Hence, the permanent knowledge is possible. Hence, the permanent knowledge is possible. So we will end here. In tomorrow's class, we will continue with the same thing with Socrates. He speaks about two worlds which exist: the world of ideas, the world of matter. Same thing. World of ideas is real. World of matter is illusion. And then we also look into why Socrates bought these ideas. There was a philosophy. One more philosopher called as sophist. Okay, followers of him were called as sophists. They actually were ulta of Socrates. They professed the opposite of what Socrates told, that matter is important, you need to have material possession, you cannot be lost in the world of ideas. So they spoke about what means they were teaching students that how to capture political power. Okay, so you can say this fellow's ideas was mainly emerged against the sophist school of thought. Okay, so we'll read bit about sophists and their school of thought, and finally then we'll see that what is his contribution to Plato. Then we'll start with Plato. Okay, so first thing we have to start with Plato is that who have shaped his ideas, and the first person who comes here is Socrates. But there are other people also who have shaped the ideas of Plato. Then we will go into important ideas of Plato. That is idea of communism of wives and property, his idea of same theory of ideas, and philosopher king, rule of law, etc. What is his viewpoint in that regard? So that is the thing. So you go back and read this again, once again, and if you have any doubts, you go through it and you come back tomorrow. And some doubts for online student Abhishek Rajput. Okay, portal I am not able to access it. Yeah, for yesterday's and today's class it was live on YouTube. For tomorrow, it will be only accessible on the portal. Okay, so if you are not able to portal today, from tomorrow it will be accessible on the portal. So that is why he is finding it difficult to access it on portal currently. Got the point? Okay, tomorrow same time is not.